A Quiet Place is a new horror movie that is directed by John Krasinski. And yes, that's right, people. I actually went and saw a horror movie. For anyone who is watching this video that may be new to my channel, let me take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a huge movie lover. I love watching movies. I love going to the movies. Movies are literally my favorite thing in the world. That being said, among genres that I will avoid seeing, horror is one of them. And the reason behind that is simple. I'm a pussy. I am probably the easiest scare you will ever meet in your life. One of, for sure. Typically, the only way you're ever gonna get me to see a horror movie is if I think the premise of the horror movie is at least really unique and really interesting. Like I said, when I did see the trailer for A Quiet Place when it first dropped, after watching the trailer, I was like, this does look like it could be interesting. And then I heard the movie was getting extremely good reviews. A lot of people were praising it for the movie that it was. So it made me feel like, you know what? If there's a horror movie that I need to see, feel like I should see anyway, I think it should be A Quiet Place. So now let's get into A Quiet Place and why this movie is fucking great. The movie is set in basically a post-apocalyptic time. A lot of the human population has been wiped out, and that's because there are these new alien monsters that have arrived on Earth that hunt by sound. These creatures are blind, so they can't see, but they have insanely good hearing. If any sound is heard, they will find you. And there's no getting away from these things. When they find you, they kill you. And because these creatures have shown really no sign of weakness at all, it's had the survivors of the human race thinking the only way to survive these things is to stay absolutely silent. The main characters in this movie are John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, and their kids. They are essentially the only characters we really follow in this movie. Let's talk about the first scene of this movie, because I've always felt that with horror movies, they really need to land with their first scene. If they can freak an audience out, if they can suck an audience in, if they can put the audience on the edge of their seat right away, you're gonna have them hooked, you're gonna have them intrigued, you'll have their attention. In the first scene, we see John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. They have 3 kids with them. Their oldest, their daughter, who is deaf, and their 2 sons. Their youngest son is about, I want to say, 4 years old. He's obviously not entirely aware of the situation that's going on in the world. At one point, they're in a store just getting some supplies. He sees a toy rocket, he tries to play with it, and his father, using sign language, tells him, you can't do that, it's too loud. That was obviously one of the areas that I immediately liked seeing in this movie. The fact that the characters were all speaking with sign language, that just shows right there how good these creatures are at detecting sound. In the fact you can't even talk, have a conversation with the people who are around you, because if you do, they might hear you and they'll kill you. So eventually they're leaving the store. The son's obviously disappointed. He wants his rocket. So, you know, his sister, being a good older sister, she takes the batteries out of the rocket and she gives him the rocket just, you know, by itself, you know, without the batteries. Unfortunately, on the way back, nobody saw that the little boy, the son, he actually put the batteries back into the rocket, and as they're walking home, he activates the rocket, and the rocket, you know, makes these rocket noises, and the look on everyone's face is, oh, fuck. So John Krasinski just runs back to his son. He's trying to get to him. You hear noises going on in the woods. You feel like something's coming. And right before John Krasinski can get to his son, you see a very quick flash of this big alien monster come out and snatch the son away. And what I love about this scene right here, it tells you basically everything you need to know. You need to be absolutely quiet, because if you make any noise, these things are gonna find you. And when they find you, there's really no getting away from them. You can't just run away and hide. If they find you, you're dead. What I also appreciated is the movie didn't like feel like, you know, oh, we can't do anything with these kids. We know we're a horror movie, but we gotta leave the kids alone. You know, the kids are invincible in this movie. You know, they can't die. They're immune. Because, you know, no one wants to cross that line. No one wants to kill a kid in a movie. But no, this movie, it went that route. It went that far. It showed, nope, yeah, anyone can die in this movie. We'll even kill this innocent, cute little kid to prove that point. I'm saying, when I saw that scene for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what we're in for. Oh. So now the movie flashes forward about a year later. The family is still living on this farm that they're at. You know, it's still John Krasinski, it's Emily Blunt. They have their 2 surviving kids, and Emily Blunt is now pregnant with another one on the way. And from this point forward, we really see the performances in this movie really stand out. Getting right into it, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, I really loved them in this movie. They both gave great performances, and what I really love seeing in both of them is just how far they want to go to protect their kids. They know know, as parents, their biggest responsibility is keeping their kids safe, especially in a situation like this. It's all about teaching their kids a way to survive, teaching their kids how to defend for themselves, how to take care of themselves. And I gotta say, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt really had amazing chemistry in this movie. I know they're a married couple in real life, so I'm sure that definitely helps out, but you really do, it does help you buy them as husband and wife in this movie. Now let's get into the kid actors of this movie, because I've seen enough horror movies to know that kid actors in horror movies, they can either make it or they'll break it. Kid actors aren't always the best actors anyway, so it's always a big risk to put them in any movie, but especially in horror movies, because if you don't buy these kids' performances, you may not buy into the real scare factor of these horror movies. But I gotta say right now, these kid actors were really good actors, especially the young girl in this movie. I did a little more research into this actress, and I guess it turns out she's actually deaf in real life, and that was something John Krasinski was looking for when he was casting the kids in this movie, because he felt that having a deaf actress, using sign language, helping the others learn sign language, it would make the movie feel a bit more authentic and a bit more real, and it absolutely did. What I really love with her character, though, is obviously she feels a lot of grief, she feels a lot of guilt for her younger brother's death, because she was the one who gave him the rocket, but ultimately, her father's trying to tell her, it's not your fault, it's not what you did, but she can't really help but feel that way. She also definitely feels the frustration of being deaf and not being able to hear, not being able to, properly communicate like the others can, but just don't. There are times, John Krasinski's trying to repair her hearing aid, but nothing's really been working, which has definitely been kind of pissing her off lately. The struggle with her character and the guilt that she feels she's been bearing, it definitely added a lot to the movie. And then later on, at one point, John Krasinski, he brings the surviving son with him on a trip just to show him, how they catch their food, how they, can function in the wilderness without the creatures finding them. And here, again, is where John Krasinski continues to stand out, because you really see how smart he is as a survivalist and how he wants his kids to be prepared. He's showing his son how to catch fish, how to hunt for food. His son's obviously terrified because he knows, the creatures are out there, and if they hear them, they're gonna kill them, but his father does a good job of showing him, it's like, look, we're at this river, you hear the rushing water sound, that masks our sound. That means they won't be able to find us here. It's even in this moment he shows his son that when a waterfall's in the background, they can actually talk and have a normal conversation, because that, sound's gonna, block out their sound. That was one of the other areas that I really appreciate with this movie. There's really not a lot of dialogue here. There are only a couple moments here where the characters actually talk. The majority of this movie is in sign language, and again, the reason I think that's awesome is because, again, it makes the movie feel more real. And if nothing else, it was really unique. How many movies out there have we seen where the movie's mostly been in sign language? I can't think of many. Where I also give this movie props is how they use the monsters in this movie. The creatures, they're not overused in this movie. They're also not, used too less. The presence of these creatures is always felt, which I think is important. And they always have moments here and there throughout the movie, especially during the first half, where the creatures do show up to, put you in suspense, to make you feel fear, to, keep you alert, to keep the audience on the edge of its seat. There's one moment John Krasinski is walking with his son back home. They run into this old man who just recently saw his wife get killed by one of these creatures. He's just standing there, and John Krasinski's trying to signal him. He's like, don't do it, don't you do it. And the man, having lost his wife, doesn't want to live anymore, so he just screams, and John Krasinski, he takes his son, hides him away, hides with him, and they see the creature just show up out of nowhere and just kill this man. The movie does such a great job at showing that you need to be absolutely silent, and what I loved is in the movie theater, in the audience, it had that effect on us. Going into the movie theater, there were some teenagers that came in, and they were talking throughout the previews, and even a little bit during the beginning of the movie, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, there's a special run in hell for people like you. But I will say, it definitely reached a point, especially after the first scene, everyone in the audience just shut the fuck up. Nobody talked, nobody whispered. Literally, everyone was trying so hard to not make a sound. I had snacks with me in the movie, and it finally reached a point, I was watching it, I was trying to reach in to get a handful, and finally just reached a point where I stopped because, you know, the movie just sucked me into that atmosphere. I didn't feel like I could do it. The great sign of a good horror movie is one that just sucks you into this world. It makes you feel like you're there, and this movie does that with flying colors. So the movie gets to around nighttime, and unfortunately at this time, Emily Blunt has felt her water break. She's now going into labor. And unfortunately, while she's making her way to the basement, she accidentally ends up stepping on a nail, which causes her to fall and break something, which makes a loud noise. Now the creatures are in her house. But even still, it's another moment. Like, Emily Blunt just stepped on a nail. There's a nail in her foot. She's bleeding. Anyone else would just want to scream and cuss in pain, but she can't do that. Like, in this world, you can't, you know, vent out. You can't scream in anger, scream in pain. You can't really cry. You can't really let out the emotions that you have inside you. And it's so hard. You see the struggle, the hell that these people live in. But again, what I also love seeing with John Krasinski is he really has devised a lot of different ways for the family to communicate with each other. You know, Emily Blunt's at a point where, you know, she's about to go into labor, she's about to give birth, and she knows there's no way she's gonna be able to stay quiet during this. So she activates a light switch on her house that kind of turns the house lights red, which is kind of a signal. It's like, hey, we need help. This is bad. This is really bad. So what John Krasinski does is he tells his son to go and set off these fireworks that'll create a much larger sound, so that way when Emily Blunt does go into birth and she finally screams, which she does, the fireworks will, you know, drown out her sound and the creature will be drawn towards that. And it's just, again, it's the tension, it's the suspense. It's seeing Emily Blunt. At one point, she's in the bathtub preparing to give birth. The creature's literally right outside the bathroom hunting her, and she's struggling so hard to stay quiet, you know, during her contractions. It's just literally, it has me sitting in my seat just white-knuckling it the whole time. So that's able to distract the creatures. John Krasinski is able to get back to the house. He finds Emily Blunt with their newborn son. And, you know, he brings her into the basement that's apparently soundproof. So now there, they can actually, you know, talk, which is, you know, the second scene of dialogue in this movie. And the only other scene of dialogue in this movie. And here's where Emily Blunt gives probably my favorite moment with her in this movie. You know, it's just her talking to John Krasinski. And, you know, she tells him, it's like, where are the kids? He's like, I'm gonna go back out there, I'm gonna find them, I'm gonna rescue them, I promise. And at one point they keep talking and Emily Blunt just says something along the lines of like, who are we as parents if we can't protect our children? I love that line because it harkens back to probably what every parent thinks. It's like, what are they if they can't protect and prepare their kids? So eventually the son reunites with the daughter. The daughter was visiting the dead son's grave, so that's why she wasn't at the house. So now the two of them are trying to make it back there. But at the same time, they're trying to hide from the creatures as well. So they try to hide from it by like going into this grain silo. But eventually one of the creatures gets in there and comes after them. You know, this was of course after the son and daughter almost sunk to death in this sinking grain. This movie doesn't let you take a breath, seriously. So anyways, the creature busts in, it tries to kill the both of them, but at one point, the daughter's hearing aid lets out this very high-pitched frequency sound that really starts to, you know, freak the creature out. The creature just starts bugging, and eventually, that sound becomes too much of it, and the creature just runs away. Which now has the daughter beginning to think to herself, So eventually the kids reunite with John Krasinski. You know, he starts to bring them home, but the creature comes back, starts attacking them once again. John Krasinski, he tries fending the creature off, but that's not gonna work. You know, the kids are basically stuck in this truck where they have no hope of surviving unless John Krasinski does something. So at this point, John Krasinski makes the right call. He makes the dad call. He looks at his daughter and he uses sign language to tell her, I love you, I've always loved you. Because the daughter hasn't been able to help but feel throughout this movie that he doesn't care for her as much because of what happened in the beginning. But now she does see that, and in this moment, John Krasinski, he screams, the creature sees him, it turns its attention onto him, and the creature kills John Krasinski here. That moment definitely hit me emotionally right there. I was just like, oh, John Krasinski died. I never expect to feel sadness when I'm watching horror movies, so for this to pull it off, definitely icing on the cake. Some of the kids make it back to Emily Blunt and the baby boy, but now the creature has also come back to them because, you know, it's still hunting them. So the creature's able to find them, and what sucks is now that Emily Blunt has this new baby, you can't really tell a baby to be quiet. A baby will cry, it will coo, it will make noises, And you can't really tell a baby to not do that because it's a baby, it doesn't know better. I was so afraid that baby boy was gonna die. I'm just like, come on, you already killed one little kid. Do you have to kill a baby too? Thankfully though, the baby didn't die. Spoiler warning inside the spoiler talk. But anyways, you know, the youngest son, he holds the baby, you know, he's basically hiding with him, while Emily Blunt, armed with just a shotgun, tries to see if she can penetrate this creature's armor, but she can't. But in this moment, the daughter starts to remember how this creature reacted to the high frequency sound from her hearing aid, so she uses this microphone that was in the basement that John Krasinski was using. She uses that to increase the frequency, increase the pitch of the hearing aid, which really starts to freak the creature out. Like, the creature's shell starts breaking on it a little bit. It just starts, you can see it's in agonizing pain right now. But at this point, once the protective shell starts to give way to the creature, Emily Blunt uses the shotgun once again. She fires at it, and she kills the creature. And now it's in the final moment. Emily Blunt, the kids, they see in the security camera footage that John Krasinski was using, they see two other creatures coming towards the house. But it's in this moment they finally know the creature's weakness. They finally know how to fight back against it. So the daughter, she still has her hearing aid, and she starts continuing to increase the amp on the microphone. Emily Blunt, she just cocks the shotgun, and now they're basically ready for war. Except that right there is where the movie ends. I actually really like that ending because it does have you wondering, it's like, oh, do they kill the creatures? Do they get killed? Like, what happens to them? Part of me thinks they eventually killed the creatures and then were able to live their lives at the farm in peace. I'm gonna go with that. So all in all, A Quiet Place was an excellent film. The performances in this movie were all excellent. John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, their chemistry was great. I loved seeing them as parents. I loved the performances that they gave. I love to see how hard they're working to make sure their kids survive, make sure their kids are able to, you know, deal with this type of situation. The kid actors in this movie were phenomenal. I thought the son did a great job. I thought the daughter was incredible in this movie. I love that the movie used mostly sign language throughout it. I love that there was very little dialogue. It made the movie feel more real. The story for this movie was so unique. The creatures in this movie, these things were fucking freaky looking. The movie was intense. It was suspenseful. It was quite frightening. There were moments where I didn't feel like I could make a sound, didn't feel like I could do anything because the movie just sucked me right into its atmosphere. I was white knuckling it throughout this movie. There were moments I was kind of looking away but not looking away because, I mean, I didn't want to get scared. The one small flaw that I'll give this movie is it did have a few moments where it relied on some cheap jump scares. Like, there are a couple moments in particular, the tension is really building up, it's getting you on the edge of your seat, and you know, a jump scare happens and it's just an animal jumping from a roof, or it's a bloody hand smacking on a window. Aside from that, however, the tension in this movie was very effective, the scares in this movie were very effective, and the jump scares that are effective, when they get ya, they get ya. And in the end, in my opinion, A Quiet Place is one of the most unique horror movies in recent years. It's one of the best movies of this year. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe. I will see you all next time.